but I like to come with something humorous as we begin. And I found a story about this family was having a dinner, and at the while they were there, this particular gathering was just father and his son because his mother was missing. And so the little boy asked his dad, "Where did mommy go?" Dad said, "Well, mommy went to a Tupperware party." And he thought, the little boy, got his answer, but then he got to thinking about that, and he said, "Well, Daddy, what's a Tupperware party?" And he was just curious, and Dad says, "Well, the honest answer, simple answer is always the best." So he says, "Well, son, what it is, the Tupperware party is a bunch of ladies that sit around selling plastic bowls to each other." Little boy nodded and indicated that he understood, but then he suddenly burst into laughter. He says, "Come on, Dad, what's it really?" Okay. Before we get into today's message, and I know you might already be turning to John 20, I wanted to share that, maybe in a short apology, I neglected to finish the story from last week, and I got asked. And I didn't think about that. So I wanted to, in case you didn't hear this, told out. But last week I shared at the end of the sermon, I shared a story about a missionary by the name of David Morse, and he met this elderly pearl diver from India, and his name, we called him Rambu. And after meeting each other, they talked for a long time. They shared their religious beliefs and so on. And then, but Rambu never accepted faith in Jesus Christ. And then how that ended, that at the end of the story, when Rambu actually wanted to give this precious gift, this pearl that his son had died finding, and then how the missionary used that as a way to share that God has given us a precious gift the same way. I neglected to finish the story of what happened to Rambu. And so if you heard that story, it's too long to tell all of it, but if you heard that at the end there, Rambu left unconvinced and yet thought about it for a while. And he came back a few hours later. He came back and had questions, and he did give his heart to Jesus Christ. So that's the end of the story. I apologize, it took a week to get it. I said, I should have done it like a cliffhanger. If you want to know what happened, come back next week. That's what I should have done. All right. Last week, as we were going through our story, Jesus had finished his journey to the cross, and he was crucified there. And we were discussing that. The remaining verses in chapter 19 talk a little bit about how Jesus' body was then taken down, laid in a tomb. If you know anything else about the story of Jesus, you probably already know what we're going to talk about today, and that's the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the tomb. And so today, these last few weeks, we've been talking about the misery, the suffering, the difficult journey, and really the purpose why Jesus came. And today we get to the victory, which is so exciting for every one of us. The victory that we have in Jesus Christ. But to prime your thinking, I want to ask you to begin thinking about two questions. Number one, where are you currently seeing victory in your life? Where's God at work? What's God doing in you? Where's God, showing up? What is going on in your life that's good? What can you celebrate about Christ today? Where are you seeing some victory? And then number two, where in your life do you need to experience more victory? That follow-up question, where are you struggling? What are your battlefields right now? What are the battlegrounds that you're going through? What are the areas in your life where it's not easy or it's not hard? Whether it's something new and fresh or whether it's something that's been around a while, where's your current battleground that you want to press into Christ and see greater victory in? So those are the two questions. And as I was pondering those things, it reminded me of a song that's on the radio right now. Play it fairly frequently. It's called Chainbreaker. And it goes like this: if you've been walking the same old road for miles and miles, if you've been hearing the same old voice telling the same old lies, if you're trying to feel the same old, if you're trying to fill the same old holes inside, there's a better life. There's a better life. It says if you got pain, He's a pain taker. If you feel lost, He's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, He's a prison-shaking Savior. And if you've got chains, He's a chain breaker. There's victory in Jesus Christ. And He is still in the job, He's still doing the work of bringing about victory in the lives of those who follow and trust Him. And we can celebrate that today. We can look for that today. We can find His help and His victory that's found when we trust Him through the pain, the frustration, the struggles that we face. Now let's get into our reading today, and in particular, as we go through it, I want you to watch the journey that Mary goes on. Mary Magdalene is introduced at the very beginning of the chapter. And we're going to learn some things from her today. There's others in the story. There's just the resurrection itself is an incredible story of hope, of healing, of what God's doing. It reveals even more about the lordship of Jesus Christ, why we can trust Him. We talked about this a while back. Buddha didn't come out the grave and walk around. Muhammad didn't come from a grave and walk around. There's no one else that has demonstrated the power over life and death like Jesus Christ. Yeah, because they weren't God. And we talked about that. So there's all these interesting aspects, but what I'd like to focus in on is Mary as we go through it. So watch her, and like we've done the last couple weeks, I'd like to take some pauses as we go through. Mary, moves in from her. We'll watch her journey now as she moves from despair to victory along the story of resurrection. Maybe one last little statement, if I could make it. This is a great narrative. And there's so much that is involved in this story. This is not a how-to move from this particular story. Is not necessarily a how-to move from pain to victory. We're going to glean a couple things that I don't think the scriptures are really teaching. I want to say that it's not teaching, but as we see her story, I think we're going to notice some similarities in our life, and then get to the victory at the end. Okay, hope that makes sense. So, John chapter 20, verse 1. Now on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb early, while it was still dark, and saw that the stone had been taken away from the tomb. And we'll stop right there. What we recognize very first with Mary is that she is confused and she's in pain. She is lost. She is hurting. She is has no idea what she's supposed to do next. Mary is confused and in great pain emotionally at this point. It said it was dark and early. And picture this in your mind. It's dark, it's very early in the morning, so Mary goes alone to walk around in a graveyard. It reminded me of this story. There was this youth group over in Coeur d'Alene. And back in the day, youth groups, you'd do these things where you'd send them on these wild goose chases around the city. They have to follow clues and find locations and stuff. And they did this one, and one of the spots they wanted to send all the kids to, they break them up into car groups, and you have to scavenger hunt through the city. They sent them to a graveyard out there. And they had to go find a particular headstone and find a name on it and all this. And meanwhile, the youth pastor and a couple of counselors, they hide in the graveyard. So as the carloads of kids come through, they could jump out and scare them, right? This is just classic youth ministry stuff, right, Sarah? This is classic youth ministry right here. And so they did it. So the adults are out there, and they're getting ready. They're hiding, behind trees and behind headstones and all this, and getting ready to start scaring kids as they come through. And then they hear this noise, and they look down in the distance in this little grove. This group comes in. They lay out a blanket. They start lighting candles. They start doing chants and stuff in the graveyard in the middle of the night, and they go, "Oh my goodness! There's like these devil worshipers have shown up to do some kind of ritual thing in the middle of the night, and they've got all these teenagers showing up in a few minutes." And they really start panicking. Well, just as soon as they start connecting these dots, the first carload of kids arrives. They get out of the car. They start walking through. The kids they see and hear what's going on, and they're not buying it. They automatically assume the counselors are trying to scare them. So they're walking through this graveyard. They see this all going on, and they decide what they did. This group of kids, they link up arms, and they all knew the words to the song, "The Saints Go Marching In." And so they start marching straight at the saints, singing at the top of their lungs, "The Saints Go Marching In." And all of a sudden, these people out there, they weren't expecting that. They look up, they get completely scared and freaked out, and they grab their stuff and run for the hills, and the teenagers chase them off. But a graveyard is kind of a freaky place in the middle of the night. But why is Mary out there? She hasn't slept in 2 days. She doesn't know what else to do. She is just in so much pain. She's lost Jesus, her friend. She's lost Jesus, her teacher. She's lost the only man that's ever taught or, treated her well in her life. She doesn't know what else to do. And so she's just in pain. And you know what? It reminds us that every one of us has pain in our life. We all have pain. We all have those times. We've been wronged. We've been hurt. We've been mistreated. Things didn't go the way we wanted or hoped. We've been frustrated. We've been angered. Everything. We all have pain, and we need to recognize that. We need to accept that. And maybe right now, as I mentioned, what's your area of battle? Maybe it's about worry. Maybe somebody's let you down. Maybe you're frustrated with something. You may not identify it right now as this really deep, burdensome pain, but we all struggle somewhere. Verse 2. And so she ran and went to Simon Peter and the other disciples, the one whom Jesus loved, and said to them, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have laid him." So what's Mary's next step? She goes and she tells her friends. How important it is to talk to someone when you're going through something hard. When you recognize you have pain. When you recognize that you're in trouble. Mary runs, she tells Peter. She doesn't know what to do. Peter doesn't know what to do. The disciples, they don't know what. Peter and John go running back, and they don't know what to do either. But at least she knows, I've got to share this with somebody else. I've got to, if I'm going to go through a valley, if I'm going to go through a hard time, if I'm going to go through this struggle, I need to have someone with me. It's pretty natural most of the time. Coming off the text here a little bit, there's such a great thing that happens when we share our bad news or our struggle with somebody else. When things go wrong, when you're confused and worried, it's just good to talk to a friend. It's good, somebody you trust, somebody you can count on, somebody who'll be there with you, somebody that you trust their wisdom, you recognize the spiritual life in them, and you maybe want godly wisdom involved in your situation. It's good to talk to a friend, to ask them to start praying for you. Maybe seek their advice and counsel. What do you think? Maybe there's something I'm not seeing. The best thing they can do is just help you process what's going on. Because a lot of times when we're in the midst of pain, when we're in the midst of a trial, we just don't see it very clearly. And so learning how to process through our problems by sharing it with somebody is such a healthy approach. But here's the problem. Quite often we don't announce, we don't discuss, we don't deal with our pain the right way. There's probably a lot of pain that we just deny. We're just in total denial. It's not there. I'm going to avoid it. I'm not going to look at it. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm just going to move on in life. It's in the past. It happened a long time ago. It's irrelevant now. It doesn't matter. I can't change it. And so I'm just going to deny that it's still there. Maybe others ignore and self-medicate through drinking, smoking, eating, shopping and spending money, television, drugs, on and on and on. We can use all. What we do is we just self-medicate. I need something to help me feel better. And I'm going to not deal with the problem. I just need something to make me feel a little bit better for now. Others hibernate. You ever been there? You just don't want to talk to anybody. You don't want to deal with anybody. You've just had too much of the world, and so you're going to hide. And you hibernate. And you crawl under that blanket. A lot of times kind of in conjunction with that hibernating mentality is we tend to dwell on the negative. We replay things over and over in our minds. Stuff that's hurt us, things that have been said, experiences we had, mistakes we've made. We dwell on the negative and we replay it in our mind again and again and again. Sometimes that builds up, and because we have problems over here, we start taking out on people over here. We lash out. We give it to somebody else. You had a bad day at work and you come home and you kick the dog and you're angry with the family and you're yelling and screaming and stomping and throwing things and breaking stuff. Has nothing to do with them. It's somewhere else. And we lash out at others around us. Blame game, on and on. There's all kinds of ways we can have these negative approaches to deal with the problem because we don't deal with the problems. We don't talk about it. We just move into other ways. This is in the Bible that James 5:16 says, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. That's God's formula for healing in your life. Finding a trusted friend that you can share your struggles with and seek wise counsel and pray for one another. Don't ignore it. Don't put it off. Don't wait. Don't stay in self-destructive habits and patterns. But instead, find those that you can share the journey with. Find that person. Find that one that can hear your pain, that can help you process what's really going on, that you can deal openly with something that's bothering you. And then pray for one another. They don't need to fix you. We shouldn't look to fix each other anyways. But we hear each other out and we share the journey and we pray for one another. It's about being a family. But nobody can come alongside you if you're hiding your pain. Next in the story, Peter and John, they run out to the tomb. Mary follows them back out there as well. They find that Jesus is gone. His burial linens are folded up and they're lying there. And so they know that this wasn't really a grave robbery thing. I mean, nobody would unwrap the body and fold up the clothes and then just take it. So that's kind of important and specific to the story. But the body is still gone. And so Peter and John, now they're lost. They don't know what to do. They're confused and in anger. I mean, they were really afraid before. Now what's going on? And so they leave. Mary stays behind a little while longer. Let's pick up her story in verse 11. We're going to jump down just a little bit. Verse 11, it says, but Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. And as she wept, she stopped to look into the tomb. And she saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had laid. One was at the head and one at the feet. They said to her, woman, why are you weeping? She said to them, they have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him. Having said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing, but she did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking? Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away. What's Mary do here? She wants to fix the problem herself. Isn't that didn't Mary think it was strange that these two men suddenly appear inside the tomb and they're just sitting there? She didn't really seem to pick up on that. She's confused about who Jesus is. She didn't recognize his voice. She didn't look at him to see. Maybe her eyes are so swollen shut from crying she doesn't recognize who he is. But what she does know is what somehow she has kind of some presence of mind to make this really outrageous plan, if you think about it. She says, what does she say to him? To tell me where the body is, and I will take him away. Now, maybe Mary was some kind of big, burly, strong woman that could carry around a full-size grown man. But probably not likely. That's probably not what's going on here. She doesn't know what to do, and she's just saying whatever comes in her mind. She's just saying whatever, I'll just deal with it. I'll fix it. I'll take care of it. Just tell me where the body is. I will go get him. And then what was she going to do? Just throw a dead body over her shoulder and start walking down the street? I mean, it really is ridiculous. She couldn't do anything, but she, in her desperation, was going to try. She's in shock, and she just says what comes to mind. And she reveals, I think, our tendency to solving problems. I'll fix it. I'll figure it out. I got to do something. I'll take care of it. This came up this morning as we were in our devotional time. We just have so much available to us in our American culture. If you have any problem, Google it. Anything you need, just Google it. And we have such a self-reliance attitude. That's kind of the American dream that we believe has been indoctrinated with for generations now. That whatever you want, you can accomplish, whatever success, whatever dream, whatever goal, whatever you need, if you work hard enough, if you go out there and do it, you can do it yourself. And that's where Mary was. Just tell me where the body is. I'll go get it. I'll pick it up. I'll carry it. Put it somewhere. I'll find a more secure place. I'll make sure this doesn't happen again. I mean, it's really outrageous. But yet, that's the way we deal with our problems, isn't it? If something's wrong, we just think, well, I'll fix it. I'll take care of it. I'll work harder. I'll find some article online. I'll just hang in there. I can, read some self-help books, or I can do this or that. Whatever it is. It's a real skill to learn how to trust in the Lord. To learn how to lay your life before Him and share with Him your needs, your failures, and your pain. That's not where our mind usually goes. Verse 16. Jesus said to her, Mary. She turned and said to him in Aramaic, Rabboni, which means teacher. This is the moment where Mary receives her hope. When she sees Jesus, she gets her eyes upon him and recognizes who he is. She suddenly realizes that she has hope. He was dead and now he's alive. He was gone and now he's returned. Even though Jesus had told them to watch for some of these things, they didn't understand what he meant. They didn't know how it would work. All they knew that everyone that they'd put their hope on was gone. All their hopes were on Jesus. Now he was gone. And they were so lost, and they were in such despair. And they had no idea where the next step of their life was to be placed. But suddenly she sees him, and she recognizes that all the things, just imagine all that was going on in her mind in that moment. That everything that Jesus said was true. Everything about him was true. They watched him die on a cross. It wasn't some hidden thing. It wasn't something that a story could have been made of, that they didn't take him quietly and privately. They hung him on a cross and watched the life literally drain from his body. But now he was alive again, and she knew who he was. And she knew that she could trust him with everything she had. And sometimes we have to come to that moment when our eyes get affixed on Jesus in such a way that we realize, I can trust you with all that I have and all that I am and all that I face and all that I go. I'm going to get off the self-help program that has failed me all my life, and I'm going to trust you. Verse 17. Jesus said to her, do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. We see that Mary clings to Jesus. This is a new idea for me because I've always read that and heard and thought and understood. Jesus was kind of saying, okay, I'm now in a kind of a maybe a glorified body or a pre-glorified body or something, and don't touch me. I think the King James might even use the words, don't touch me, something like that. But I'm not sure that's what's going on here. That Jesus wasn't actually rejecting her or pushing her off or saying, don't touch me. Instead, Mary is obviously elated. Okay, she's got hope back. She's got life back. Her tears are drying up for the first time in days. She is so excited, and she just naturally just lunges and clings onto Jesus, and she's hanging on him. You ever been in like a kind of an uncomfortably long hug from somebody? She is just all over him. And because of all the flood of emotions that's going on. She finally realized who Jesus is, what he is doing. She sees the victory that's available in Christ. And she doesn't want to let go of him ever again in this moment. She's clinging onto Jesus. That's the victory for us. That's the victory that we have when we learn how to cling onto Jesus Christ. Because there's a lot of stuff in the world that we love to cling to. We know what it means to cling. We know what it means to worship. We know what it means to hang on to the things that are passing away. We need to learn how to cling to Jesus Christ. She's in this euphoric state and place, and she's just feeling so excited and so much love and so much hope that she's clinging on Jesus. And Jesus finally says, okay, Mary, whoa, okay. Let me go here. I've got work that I still need to do. I still have to go and do some more. Commentator by the name of Tinney wrote, Jesus was not protesting that Mary should not touch him, lest he be defiled, but was admonishing her not to detain him because he would see her and his disciples again. And so the clinging part was exactly what we need to learn how to do. The clinging onto Jesus Christ, that we can walk in the Spirit, that we can learn how to trust him, that we can learn to be in his presence. We've said this before. So it's funny as the team was going through their devotions, I had so many thoughts that were rattling around in connection to the message this morning. But we used to say that the pews will never be full of sinners until the altars are full of saints. That we understand that our hope, our power, our courage, our wisdom, our love, everything comes from the clinging to Jesus Christ that we need to learn how to do. And we hang on to him. Fill your car and your home with Christian music. Fill your day with prayer. Fill your mind with his word. Fill your life with the things of Jesus Christ. And push out the stuff that clutters up your life with worldly things. We need to learn actually how to cling to Jesus. And it was so natural for Mary in that moment. Now the last one, I almost didn't include, and I almost missed it. And just kind of, I was thinking the journey ended there with that clinging to Jesus. But she does one more thing I think is so critical in verse 18. Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples. I've seen the Lord. And that he had said the things to her, the message that she gave to him. We start to move into victory when we learn how to announce that victory to others. Mary shared her victory. She began to share what God had done in her life. She knew that the power came from the Lord. Her victory was in the Lord, and she wanted to share that message. She wanted to let others know that. That's when I think that's when we start taking. We realize, we own it, we see where the power came from. We start giving glory and honor where it is due. We see that it is only in Christ that we receive the hope and the victory that we need. And we start declaring to the rest of the world. So part of it is evangelism, but part of it is when we just realize our victory is in the Lord. It is what He has done. I have been with the Lord and I have seen the Lord, and that is how I got the breakthrough in my life. And we become so convinced, and we become so certain, and we become so aware that that's where the power is, that we start to share it with others. This is what God has done for me. After her encounter with Jesus, Mary runs back and she tells the good news to the rest of the disciples, and she shares it. What is your good news story? Where have you seen God do good work in your life? We just see God at work around us. And it's so exciting when we share our stories and we take recognition of what God's doing, and we let Him receive the glory when we tell others that God is working in my life. Mary ran out and she shared her victory with others. And I hope that that's a habit that you're trying to live into as you see what God's doing in your life, and He gives you help and hope through the struggles that you face. We'll continue a little bit more in the story next week. But as we close, maybe we return to those two questions at the beginning. Where are you seeing victory in your life? Where are you struggling in your life? And what are you doing to invite God into your struggle, into your pain, into your issue, into the area where you are hurting or confused or upset or lost? What are you currently doing to invite God into that journey and learn to trust in Him? Well, let's close with a word of prayer.